Something slightly different today because I'm going to be dealing with brass, and in order to do it properly, or to do the John Williams thing a little bit more justice, is to kind of just set the scene with something else completely. And what I'm doing is I'm using a couple of examples from the Sevsay's Cambridge Guide to Orchestration, which is an amazing volume and one of huge practical help. I can't think of any other orchestration book, having read and studied most of them, that is anyway even remotely close to this one, because there's so much information in it and it's just incredible. Of course, Rimsky is always a fantastic thing, in Adler and all of that sort of thing, but really this one is one of practical help. So I've chosen I think it's exercise 33, which is Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4 in F minor. And it's the third movement, the scherzo, which starts off with that sort of pizzicato bit. And there's lots of sections, sort of strings, then wind, then brass, this sort of thing. And this is an example of sort of blended block chordal homophony in the brass. So this is the excerpt. That's it. It's very, very short indeed. I'm just going to do it once more. And there we go. It's made even more complicated by the fact that we've got all sorts of strange things. So we've got horns. Actually, it's going to be 1 and 3 playing the top melody note, then horns 2 and 4 playing. Sorry, this is the harmony. Then we've got trumpets in F, which are high trumpets. So that's going to come out as a high D flat, a fourth above. Then we've got alto trombone, tenor trombone, bass trombone, and timpani. Which I think there are only 3 timps in this, so of course there are going to be certain notes that it just simply can't play. So I'll deal with that in a minute. But anyway, what I've hopefully done is to put it all in concert pitch and reduce it all so that we can see exactly what's going on. So this is, as I've said, an example of blended brass. So it's to do with colour contrast within the brass, scoring for block chordal homophony, bloik, interesting there, the balance of the brass, and the timpani roll as well, or the roll of the timpani rather than a timpani roll, the roll of the timpani. So I've put a YouTube link as well to this, and I've also highlighted the instruments. So we've got trumpet in F1. And the other melody note is trumpet in F2. I'm just dealing with the melody. Then an octave below that, we got the alto trombone here on the D flat. And then we've got the tenor trombone on the F here, which is basically the trombones are replicating exactly what the trumpets are doing, but an octave lower. Then we've got various bits of harmony. So the harmony is just the horns. And the harmony are these A's, which is almost like a sort of pedal tone, really. And they are playing the 5th of the root of the chord at that point, but then the 5th. So their role sort of changes somewhat. But basically it's sort of, tonic dominant type stuff, either the root or the 5th of a chord rather than the 3rd. Then we've got the bass line, which is the bass trombone and the timp. So I've actually doubled the notes so that you can see. So here, the timp, because it can't play the B flat, just plays the D flat. And it's chordal. More on that later. So in this particular exercise, we're looking at the balance of the brass and how they blend. So what's interesting is that the melody is entirely dedicated to the trumpets and the trombones of, a sort of similar type, whereas the harmony is entirely devoted to the horns, which is obviously a different instrument completely. So I think that's really the main point in terms of the fact that Tchaikovsky's deliberately differentiating the melody from the harmony by not blending those instruments in the same role. So he doesn't have any horns on the melody, he just has them on the harmony. And in terms of balance, there's quite an interesting sort of chapter in the book which deals with, you know, dynamics of mezzo forte or softer or louder than mezzo forte. And what he does is in the brass, so horn and trumpets here, he assigns 2 points for anything which is mezzo forte or softer. So obviously pianissimo is softer. So we got 2 points per instrument, effectively. So then we add up what's going on. So in the melody, in the upper voice, the trumpet 1, so this particular note, that's assigned 2 points. And the alto trombone, which is also an octave lower, but it's the upper voice of the melody, if you see what I mean, is also 2 points. So that adds up to 4. Trumpet 2 and tenor trombone is 4. And then in the harmony, this is also 4 as well. So just the horns. So we've got 8 and 8. But here, rather interestingly, the bass is slightly different because we have only 2 points for the bass, although the timpani is sort of percussing it. So it says here, the bass trombone, you know, why is it unbalanced? And actually it's not. The bass trombone is very powerful, Sevsay says, and distinguishable even in softer dynamics. I should have spell checked this before I did this. And is the lowest voice and reinforced with timp most of the time, so it will sound balanced. Yes, even in soft dynamics that is the case. And I think that explains that. And then when the timp doesn't play the bass note, it says can be given a harmony pitch other than the bass note if there is no time to change the pitch. Of course, this was before the sort of chromatic timp. And can sometimes play notes not in the harmony at short durations, as the fast changes are not easily perceived by the ear. And in fact, later on, in a similar thing, the timp plays completely different notes really to the rest of the orchestra. So, you know, that does sort of sound. But it's interesting, you know, this point allocation is quite interesting in terms of balance, and it's very similar to, you know, the 2 horns equals 1 trumpet type sort of thing. That Rimsky talks about here with 4 woodwind in sort of louder dynamics. So that's not the point system. The point system is this one. So in terms of to achieve a balanced tutti effect, this is where you might use it. But I like the differentiation of the melody because even though it's in 6 and thirds, that is something we see in John Williams a lot. So I thought I'd just start off with a very, very short example of that. Just to sort of see. And then the next thing I'm going to choose is some Dvorak, which has differentiated harmony, so not blended brass. But we'll see how that fits in, because I think, again, it basically foreshadows this excerpt here, which we'll see in another video. So I'm going to keep these quite short before I get to 7 in 1, Is It a Bird? But we'll immediately see that in this case, we've got, interestingly enough, the trombones are blended melodically with the horns. So it's actually quite an interesting effect at that point. So there's a mixture that Williams is using, and in fact Arthur Morton is the one who orchestrated this particular cue, which I'm sort of really interested in. And now hopefully I'll have set the context a little bit more for when we look at that in a bit more detail. So I'll just leave you with that, and that's it for now. I will see you soon.